Hello and welcome to Just One More Watch. Doesn't happen very often. Well, only about once every 6.5 minutes. But I was wrong about one crucial detail when I unboxed this Orient Star a couple of months ago. I will confess my specific sin and duly self-flagellate a little later in the video. This is now my second encounter with Orient Star, their premium line, and I must say it's now 2 out of 2. These are really good. I looked at the Star Diver last year and was most impressed. It was very well made, so much so that it won its episode of Loom Wars, and I thought it was well priced also at less than 500 USD. I believe the green and gold that I looked at is now quite hard to find. There are plenty of other colour options available. 2 thumbs up recommendation on that one. A worthy alternative to the Seiko King Turtle and King Samurai ranges, that's for sure. Today I'll be reviewing a far dressier watch from that Star line, one that goes head to head not with Seiko's Prospects, but with their Presage range of watches. And again, I think this one more than holds its own with the best of the cocktail times. Now you saw the pop-up? This video is sponsored by JOMASHOP. They sent me this watch for free. I do not have to send it back. All they ever ask is that I leave a link in the description of the video to a listing for this watch, which of course I will do. These drift in and out of stock, but they're currently in stock for $340 US during the summer sale. I always say it, even if you don't end up buying from JOMASHOP, you should probably always use them as a bit of a price reference because their prices are always amongst the sharpest. That's because they're a grey market retailer. What that means is the watch is the same, the packaging's the same. The only difference is they cover the warranties themselves. So how lovely is this Orient Star then? And what was the error that I made during the unboxing? Let's flip the camera and find out. I must say I was a little bit in love with this one when I unboxed it, and to be honest that hasn't changed even when my error was pointed out by many of you in the comments section of that video. You can tell from the packaging that you're dealing with a more premium range from Orient in this Orient Star range. For example, this is the box of the Star next to the box of a similarly priced Triton. Everything just feels a little bit nicer with the Star. For example, the cushion is plump and firm. It has a substantial plastic tag. Nothing that's going to have a radical impact on your life, let's face it. Just a number of things that help make you feel good about your purchase. Now, in terms of sizing, I only had to remove 2 links, which does limit this one somewhat to about 7.5, 7.75 inches absolute maximum, and of course downwards. It's not a particularly big watch which suits this dressy style, but I often wonder if it isn't false economy by brands. They save a few cents, maybe a couple of dollars on bracelet links, but possibly lose sales because the watch physically can't fit certain larger wrist sizes. What do you think? Are you a big-wristed guy who likes smaller watches? Is this a common frustration for you? Leave me a comment, let me know your thoughts. So in terms of dimensions then, as discussed, it is slightly smaller at 38.5. That size I think is a real sweet spot. You'll find that dimension in offerings from brands like Seiko, like Omega, like many others. It is 13mm thick though, but a lot of that is from the domed crystal. I'll show you that in just a second. For a 38.5 diameter, you're hoping for a lug to lug of 45 or less, and we get it here with 0.5 millimeter to spare. 20mm lug width means easy strap swaps, and sized up for me, 7-inch wrist with 2 links removed, it weighs in at 115 grams. The 316L stainless steel case is pretty simply finished. High polished sides, quite thin vintage style lugs but drilled in case you do want to put this one on leather. Indeed, I will show you it on leather a little later in the video. There's a circular brush to the upper lug surfaces and a high polished fixed bezel. The push-pull crown is signed with the ovoid Star S logo. But look at the doming on that crystal. Designed to replicate the look of old school acrylic, it gives the watch a real flying saucer feel when you view it from the sides. I may as well confess then, that is domed mineral crystal, not sapphire crystal, as I stated when I unboxed it. Perhaps a bit of wishful thinking there on my part. I would of course have preferred sapphire, but honestly, I still love this watch even with mineral, and for $340, I think mineral is fair enough. Especially when the bracelet is as nice as this one. It tapers from 20 at the lugs to 18 at the clasp, back up to just over 19 for the clasp itself. Solid links, solid end links, just push pins, but again that's fine, and it's a proper 5 linker. The thin second and fourth links having a nice high polish to them, the others are very finely brushed. Even the clasp is pretty good. It's only a pressed upper with the oval logo stamped into it, but it's nice and smooth milled scissor underneath that, double pushers. Now 3 holes of micro adjust is one less than I would like, but it is one more than I was expecting. The clasp, by the way, is entirely replaceable. You can swap it for any 18mm clasp you have in the house. If you want to put it on something more substantial or something with more adjustment, that is, then you can do so. The case back is screw on. 50 meters of water resistance is fine for this style of watch. It's definitely more dressy than Gada, if you see what I mean. Now the movement, I think the JOMASHOP listing here is actually wrong. It looks like I'm not the only one that makes the occasional boo-boo. They list this one as having a 40N52 movement, but I believe this is an F6N44 movement found in the second generation from 2017 onwards, as denoted by having AF in the model number, as this one does in the listing. Look, it doesn't actually matter all that much, but I don't fancy another round of flagellation if I get this wrong. 22 joules, hacking and hand winding, 40-hour power reserve, and stated accuracy of -15 to +25 seconds per day variance. The movement has some decoration with plenty of perlage, but probably the less said about that perlage the better. At least it has a nice rotor, skeletonized with the brand name and the logo once more in gold. Alright, let's get on to the main event, the dial and the handset. The star of this star surely has to be the blue handset. Not visible from all angles, the vibrant blue comes and goes depending on the light, but if you catch them correctly, they really pop. I'd imagine they are blue as opposed to blue de. I don't think heat treatment can make anything quite that vibrant. The rest of the dial is quite traditional, with the obvious exception of the power reserve, but a bit more on that later. The hour and minute hand are Dauphine style and unloomed. If the needle second hand looks a little bit short, it's because it has to be to cope with the doming of that crystal. Silver arrowhead indices are applied. They rise to a point near the back edge, giving each one 3 high polished surfaces therefore. There's a high polished double baton at the 12 and a slightly clipped arrowhead at the 3 to make way for the date complication. Now opinion will be split, I'm sure, about the date. 50% of the people watching will require a date for any purchase. The other 50% I'm sure would have preferred this one without it. And then there's the power reserve. I've never been a massive fan of these personally. I've always thought it was like a fuel gauge for your watch and not really all that necessary therefore. At least this one sits at the 12 o'clock, meaning the watch does retain some vertical symmetry, or at least it would do if it didn't have that date at 3 o'clock. One other obvious result of the power reserve is that the logo moves beneath the pinion. I must say, I actually think it looks okay there. Would I have preferred this watch without the power reserve and without the date? Yes, I would. Do I still like it with those 2 elements in the dial? Yes, I do. On wrist, it is a lovely thing to wear. A lug-to-lug of sub 45 and that high quality bracelet ensure that. The third micro adjust hole does give you more options than you would get with a Seiko Sarb or some of the Casio Oceanus models that I have reviewed recently, but at around 115 grams you can wear this one loose, no problems at all. In fact, the small and unobtrusive crown is ideal for wearing it below the knuckle. But how dressy can a dress watch be when it's on a bracelet? If you really want to glam this one up, stick it on leather. Now, I admit my selection of leather straps are probably not dressy enough for this Orient star. This lovely silver dial could totally get away with black, brown, even blue because of those hands, and you could go crazy here with lizard or ostrich, crocodile, alligator, you name it. I think the Orient could probably pull it off. Alright, moans and niggles, and then a kind of if not then what section. If you don't fancy one of these, I think there's a couple of directions you could go to find something more satisfying for you. I don't actually have that much to complain about that I haven't already talked about anyway. The power reserve meter is going to be a matter of personal taste, as is the date complication, and as much as I wish it was sapphire glass, me claiming it to be sapphire won't change the fact that it is in fact mineral. Now, JOMASHOP only stocks this white dial blue hand version on the bracelet, which I think is the prettiest version of this watch, but as discussed, it would be dressier on leather. What if you want something a little dressier? Well, there are various leather banded options for the Orient Star, including this gold one, but they're all far more expensive than $340 USD. Otherwise, I'd suggest you look at the smaller, newer 38mm Seiko Cocktail Time series. I looked at the Negroni version a while back and the dial was just nuts. If you want to go in the other direction and pick up something a similar size but a little more tooly, Joma has the PR100 range by Tissot with loom and 100 meters of water resistance, coming in at somewhere between 250 and 400 USD, but it's nowhere near as pretty as the Orient. So, by no means new and by no means perfect, but for the price being charged here, I think a great option. The case finish is not exactly on par with Grand Seiko, but for only 10% of the price, I think that's fair enough. Like I said, this is my second Orient Star, but it definitely won't be the last. I'll just make sure that I read the spec sheets more closely for any future unboxings. So there you have it, a gorgeous little watch. One not without its idiosyncrasies, I admit, but one that more than holds its own against everything from Seiko or Citizen for the same money, I think. I wish it had sapphire, but you can't have everything that you wish for, can you? Well done, you made it to the very end of the video. Why not check out my review of the Orient Star Diver, or one of the nicest dials in the Cocktail Time range, the SRPE 41, aka the Negroni that I referred to earlier on. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in a future video.